This is Richard, Finding Book Readers blog, and today I have the Kindle Paperwhite. It's Kindle's, the newest Kindle e-reader. And I have a couple of other e-readers as well, just to kind of compare it with. I have the Kindle Touch. Okay, and you can see the Paperwhite is about the same size. The Touch is just a little bit larger. The Paperwhite's thinner. One reason is because it has a different kind of touch screen. If I can kind of angle it so you can see, I'm not sure if it's going to really show up on the video, but the Kindle Touch uses an infrared based touch screen, which means the transmitters and receivers are in the edge of the bezel, so that part is thicker. The Paperwhite, because it uses a capacitive touch screen, that part of the bezel is thinner, so it's a little bit nicer. It's a little bit less blocky. Somehow it feels a little like the edges are a little bit more rounded, which I like. I also like the color. I never was a fan of the Kindle Touch, the color of it. The darker color of the Paperwhite appears to me to make the perceived contrast better. Also, with the Kindle Touch, it never really felt comfortable in my hand to hold it and to use it one-handed. The Paperwhite, on the other hand, is much better. With my Kindle Touch, unless I had it in a cover, it was not really comfortable for me to use one-handed. With the Paperwhite, that's no longer an issue. The Kindle platform on the Paperwhite remains pretty much the same. There's a couple of new features, but for one thing, at the bottom, you can now, instead of location, you can display on the left side down here how many minutes you have left either in the chapter or in the book. When you first get the Paperwhite, that's not really accurate. It takes the device a while to learn your average reading speed, but over time it's actually become pretty accurate. So that's a nice feature. A couple of things that have been taken away are, as you probably know by now, the audio capabilities. There are none in the Paperwhite or the new basic Kindle. Another thing is, with the Kindle Touch, if you swipe up or down, you go to the next or the previous chapter. And because of that, I learned to, instead of swiping to turn pages, I would tap, which I'm entirely used to doing now, because sometimes the Touch would misinterpret your swipes if there's a little bit of an up or down slant to it, and you would end up at a different chapter. So I think that's why Amazon deleted that option. Now swiping up and down doesn't do anything unless you're in a periodical. This is a periodical, so just to show you how the swipe works in that, swiping up and down takes you to different articles in a periodical. So that feature still works for magazines, but it does not work for books on the Paperwhite. I do much prefer the capacitive touchscreen. I think it works better than the infrared screen that Amazon used on the Kindle Touch, although I do like the infrared touchscreen on the Nook and the Sony e-readers, but it just didn't seem to work quite as well on the Touch. Another good thing about the capacitive touchscreen is if you need a waterproof cover. I have this purported water boy. I'm not going to seal it up, but just to show, it works fine with this type of touchscreen. That's not the case if you have, say, the Kindle Touch or the Nook Simple Touch, which have the infrared screens. It does not work very well. So Amazon has added a front light, as Barnes & Noble did with the Nook Simple Touch with GlowLight, but the concept's a little bit different. First of all, Barnes & Noble didn't really do anything else to improve the Nook Simple Touch. They basically just tacked on light to it. Amazon used a higher resolution e-paper for the Paperwhite, and the concept's a little bit different. With the Nook, the light is meant to be used when you're reading in low light situations or reading in bed at night. With the Paperwhite, the light is always on. In fact, you can't turn it off. Right now I've got it at the lowest setting, but if I take it into the dark, you'll see that it's still actually on just a little bit. The light on the Paperwhite is meant to be on all the time, as I said, and you're meant to adjust it so that the brighter the light that you're reading under, the brighter you turn the front light. And what that does is it whitens the page, which you can see here where I have it turned up. Compared to that, the Nook Simple Touch looks a bit bland. You know, I really prefer the wider screen. Of course, I don't have the light on the Simple Touch now. Now it's on. Let me turn it up a bit. You basically get a similar effect with the Simple Touch with GlowLight, but the light is a little bit different. I'm not sure how I can explain it. After I finish here, I'll go film in a darkened room, and that'll probably show it a bit better. With the Simple Touch, you almost get the feeling that the screen is lit, whereas with the Paperwhite, it seems more like paper to me. You also have, with the Nook, the light's at the top, whereas with the Kindle, it's at the bottom. So with the Simple Touch, when you have the light on, you always see this glowing top edge, which is kind of annoying for me, although you do get used to it after a while. With the Paperwhite, you have other problems. Okay, this technology of creating these front lit screens is not really perfected yet. It involves laminating different layers together, a light guide with micro etching, and the touchscreen layer onto the e-ink screen. And there's a lot of apparently a lot of failed devices, or a lot of failed screens in the production process. So the yield is not as good as it should be, because not all the designs when they come, not all of the displays when they come off the line are really optimal, and that is probably why the Nook, when it first came out with a front light, it was hard to find. It was pretty scarce for a while. Kobo also, they have a front-lit e-reader out, and it is yet to make an appearance in the US. It looks like, I'm just guessing here, but perhaps Kobo also is having production problems, and so they're focusing on other countries where they have less competition. Eventually it'll arrive in the US, but not yet. Okay, this is actually the same font Might be a little bit different size, but it's the Cecilia font. Yeah, I think that's about, I'm not going to get it exactly the same size, but it's almost the same. And Amazon has tweaked the font to make it a little bit more contrasty. Compared to the Nook Simple Touch, though, even though the Simple Touch has the e-ink screen with less resolution, there is a little bit of difference. The Paperwhite is a little bit contrastier, and the screen may be a little bit wider, but there isn't a great deal of difference. Okay, next I'm gonna take them into a dark room, and so I can kind of show the lights off better. Okay, so here we are in a dimly lit room. I've got both of them turned off just to show you. Okay, the minute you turn the Kindle on, the light goes on to whatever brightness setting you had it before. When you turn it off again, then the light dims, and it goes to this one. It has the sponsored screensaver, so it goes to an ad. To turn it on, you swipe at the bottom. Okay, with the Nook, when you turn it on, the default setting, the light's going to be off. If you want to turn it on, you hold down the end button, and it turns on to whatever your setting was. Now, I'm going to turn the light all the way to the top here, which is brighter than it should be for this low light, but just to kind of show the way the lights work a little bit differently in both of them. Okay, you can see the Kindle on the left has a little bit wider screen. Also, the lights are at the bottom versus at the top for the Nook. It may not show up too well in the video, but the light on the Nook is not really as even. There is a little bit of mottled shadowing around, but it doesn't look really bad. It's maybe has a kind of parchment look or something. That's one way to look at it. You can see the lights on the top edge, and they're Barnes & Noble uses looks like 8 bulbs there. So you always have this brightness at the top, which I find kind of annoying, but as I said before, you do get used to it. With the Kindle, you have some shadowing at the footer. Amazon uses 4 bulbs, if you can kind of see them at an extreme angle there. I find the shadowing at the foot to be a little bit less annoying. It really doesn't bother me at all. And I have seen a number of user complaints that the shadows from the lights extend up into the reading area, and there's also complaints from some users that the light has a pinkish cast. That's not the case with mine. Mine was one of the first ones that shipped. So if you do buy a Paperwhite and you do get those problems, that is not normal, and you should call Amazon's customer service. Now, in my case, if I start noticing shadowing down here in the footer, if I turn the light down, it goes away normally. That's usually an indication that I have the light setting too high for the ambient light. Okay, when you're in a really dim area, though, it's hard to get rid of it because you need the light bright enough that you can read. If you're under normal lighting, I usually never see shadowing on my Kindle. And yeah, again with the Nook, there is some shadowing. You can see it's a little bit darker up here. Here I have a PDF document open on both the Paperwhite and the Simple Touch, and I have the light on the Nook. As you can see, this document has both text and a schematic at the bottom of the page. Okay, the way the viewing works on both devices is a little bit different. First, I'll show the Paperwhite. Okay, first of all, you can double tap to fit to the width of the screen. It's still a bit hard to read there. You can switch to landscape. Now you can double tap again, and that's easier to read. It still might be a little small for some users, but it's better. The graphics are going to look better. You do notice the improved resolution of the e-ink screen that Amazon's used for the Paperwhite. When you're looking at graphics, it's quite sharp. Now, with the Paperwhite, you can zoom, you can pan around, and while this is something that works better on a tablet, the Paperwhite's actually pretty smooth at panning and zooming for an e-ink device, or so it seems to me. With the Nook, your choices are a little bit different. First of all, double tapping to resize to fit the width of the screen doesn't work. Okay, also you don't have pan and zoom. That just switch to the next page. What you can do is open the reader tools, and you can enlarge the font. Okay, that makes it much easier to read. Actually, you can get a really large font if you need it. But the problem is, if you do that, you lose your graphic. This is where the graphic should be. It's basically just listing the text labels for the schematic. So the Nook is probably going to be better for reading PDF files that have a lot of text, but for if they have graphics that you need to view, the Paperwhite's going to be better. And the Paperwhite, if you put it in landscape mode, it's pretty doable. This just gives more information on the book, on the Nook. Landscape mode in the Paperwhite is doable for some users that need a larger text, a larger font size. Though it's going to be a bit hard to read, but I can get by with it. My eyes aren't the best. So, which e-reader is better? Kindle Paperwhite on the left here, or the Nook Simple Touch with GlowLight? Unfortunately, it's not that easy. There's not really a great clear-cut choice between them. My personal preference is for the Paperwhite. I like Amazon's treatment of the light better. I like the fact that it's always on, and it doesn't just serve to enable you to read in a dark environment, but it brightens and whitens the page. It makes it contrastier. With the Nook, sure, you can turn the light on and you'll get a similar effect, but I think the light looks better on the Paperwhite. With the Paperwhite, it looks like a brightly lit paper page to me, whereas with the Nook, it looks like a artificially lit screen, so I just prefer the Paperwhite. I like the way it looks better. And I find this slight leakage at the top of the bezel here more annoying than the occasional shadowing I get on the bottom of the Kindle. As far as ergonomics go, they're both very comfortable to hold and to use, whether with one hand or two. The Nook is a little bit wider, and after using the Paperwhite for a while, I do prefer the narrower shape, but they're both really comfortable. Where I think Amazon definitely has a strong advantage is with the overall reading platform, the Kindle platform as a whole. It has a lot more features. It's very rich and deep feature set. Most users probably aren't going to use all of the features that are there, but if you do need them at some point, it's nice to know that they're available. The Nook, on the other hand, has most of the features most people will want, but the Kindle platform just has a lot of extra things. And if you're working with documents, personal documents and things, Amazon makes it easier to get those into your archived items in the cloud. It's where you can download them to any of your devices without having to sideload them via a USB cable. Well, that's a nice thing if you're doing a lot of work with documents or clipping from web pages and reading it on your e-reader. It's easier to do. That's better integrated with the Kindle.